everyone, and welcome to Create Your Life Story, the best guide on the internet to record, edit and share life's memories with the world and your family in a way that's never been possible up until now, with ideas to help you get started today. Hello and welcome back. I'm your host Ian Kath, and this is episode 6. Start small, just record. Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back to Create Your Life Story. I was speaking to my mother the other day for her birthday. And I rang her up and I said, how are you going? And we were chatting about things, and she mentioned that she's doing a computer class. And there's a reason for this. The reason I'm telling you this, it's relevant. And she was telling me that she's doing this computer class with some older people, much like herself. She's in her late 70s, and I've got a computer teacher who's an old computer scientist. He's 84 and he's taking this class. He goes back to the old Valve days of computers. And Mum was saying that she turned around to all these people and said, you know, we've got all this knowledge, and when we go, it's going to be lost. And in her case, she's the very last of her family. Her remaining sister has dementia, and the rest of her family have gone. So she's the very last person with her personal family memories. And she's been reflecting on this a little bit, and she mentioned to everybody that we ought to write this down. We ought to get this information that we've got down before it's lost so that our grandkids have got something. And I said, that's interesting, Mum. Let me tell you what I've been up to. So I told her all about what we're doing here and what we're doing with Create Your Life Story. And it was wonderful. She got quite excited. She hadn't considered it, and this is something I've brought up a few times before. We automatically think of writing, but we don't consider the idea of recording. And that's what this site's all about, you know, to help people shift from the concept of just written biographies into an audio biography. So before we get into today's show, I want to ask you how things are going. Let me know. I'd love to hear how things are developing for you. The last show was all about recorders. How did you go with the recorder project? Did you have a bit of a play around with your units that you might have lying around home? Did you try a few different systems out? Are you thinking about buying something, or maybe just a microphone for your computer that you've currently got? Let me know. We've got more things coming down the pipe in regards to this sort of stuff. I want to talk about microphones at some stage, and there's just so many things that we can talk about, but it all takes time, doesn't it? I'd love to know. Leave a comment at the bottom of the post over on the site, createyourlifestory.com, or get back to me on an email at chat@createyourlifestory.com. Love hearing from you. So today's show, start small, just record. Like any new project, the important thing is to start. It's very easy to get bogged down in all the little things that prevent us from actually getting underway, all of the preparation, all the learning, all of the stuff that you do beforehand. And you can use that as a procrastination tool so that you don't actually do the work and get the process underway. And that's why I say, just start small, just record, just get underway. That's why the last show was about recorders, because I wanted you to find a recorder, any recorder. It doesn't have to be the recorder you're actually going to use for the production. Just grab a recorder and start practicing. And if you happen to have a mobile phone that works, for argument's sake, go and grab that. It may not be what you want to use for the final production, but it's a great tool to help you get started with this process. So start small, just record. And with recording, you need to feel comfortable with the technology. You need to get comfortable with organising your thoughts and speaking well, speaking clearly, getting used to the idea that you need to actually project and you need to enunciate and you need to avoid as many stammers as you possibly can. And it all takes time. The sooner you start, the sooner you get used to that process, the better. Now, don't be surprised if you feel a bit overwhelmed, especially with the technology, especially with the process of recording. It takes time to become familiar with anything, and this is maybe a whole new process for you. So just give yourself time, be gentle on yourself, and just start small and just record and see how it goes. Your voice will sound strange. It will not sound as you expect. If you've never heard your voice before, you'll be shocked. It will not be as you expect. And that's because we hear things differently to the way it sounds. You may not know that when you actually speak, the vibrations resonate through your skull and go directly into your ear. And because of that, we hear our own voice at a lower level than what it is to everybody else. And when you first hear your voice recorded, you'll be surprised at the fact that it's probably a little bit higher in its pitch to what you're used to. Relax, you'll get used to it. Just give yourself time, and you'll slowly adjust to what your voice sounds like to everybody else. You're the one who's not used to your voice. Everybody else is very comfortable with your voice. And that's why it's important not to cheat. Like I said, it's all about getting started. As I've said, there's two ways of recording a life story. One is whereby you're sitting in conversation with somebody else, engaged in a real conversation and bouncing ideas off each other, where you may be the person who is recording somebody else's life story. And the other version is where you might be recording your own life story. If you're in a conversation with somebody else, you've got it much easier. You've got somebody to truly engage with. But it's also important for you to get some practice because you've never done this before. And you need to get familiar with your own voice and all the technology and all the equipment and the editing and all those things. So take a little bit of time to sit down, just you and the recorder, and practice. If you're recording yourself, the challenge is slightly more difficult. You need to imagine that you're in a conversation with a listener. You need to imagine that that person is sitting there opposite you and they've just asked you a question to which you respond, and they are now sitting there intently waiting to hear what you have to say. And you're explaining without their input what the story is, what the information you want to get across. And all the whole time they are listening intently because that's exactly what's going to be happening. There are going to be people listening to this recording and they will be listening intently to what you have to say. So imagine that they're sitting across the table from you. Most people find the thought of recording themselves awkward, and although they can normally speak well and string along a conversation, the moment a microphone's placed in front of them, they gum up and fall over their thoughts, and suddenly a normal